Hello, welcome to Mining Now. I'm your host, Jared Downey. We're just coming off a 29 or 30 episode run at Mine Expo, so it was great. And we didn't want to lose momentum, so we're right back in studio and doing a third episode with Wingtra. But we're going to also bring in Freeport-McMoRan to join them. They're using the Wingtra products and services. So it's a perfect setup to have Scott McTavish. He is the head of business development Americas at Wingtra, and Dylan Shorthouse. He is the senior mine engineer at Freeport-McMoRan. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Good to have you.
Great, thank you. Thanks for having us.
I got a pretty big education on the last episode. We were talking Wingtra and propeller. So now this is going to go into very real world application with having Freeport-McMoRan on. Let me just start with both of your backgrounds. Scott, can you expand a little bit about your role with the company?
Sure. Yeah. As you mentioned in the introduction, I'm head of business development for the Americas. I've been with Wingtra now for 6 years. I came on in 2018, head of sales for North America, and then transitioned into BD role a few years ago. So I'm really focusing right now on our larger customers, especially in the mining space. Implementing technology workflows, integrations, trainings, really to try to look at reducing, operational costs and increasing their use of reliable data.
You have quite a background too, didn't you? Did you work in Silicon Valley as well?
I did for a little bit, yes. Yeah, I've had a varied background. After graduating university, I worked in the geomatics, geospatial industries across mining, construction, urban planning, both U.S. and Canada. In 2007, I started one of the first drone surveying businesses worldwide and expanded that to 3 offices. And then I went and worked in Silicon Valley for a few years for another drone company focused in the mining sector before coming to Wingtra.
Just quickly, how much have drones advanced? I know that's an obvious question because it's been insane, but from someone who's actually been on the ground, how much has it just exponentially grown?
It's been huge, as anyone could tell. I think early days it was a lot to focus on the academia, a lot of research around it, not as much on the commercial sector.
Right.
The ease of use wasn't there. You had to be very specialized. There's a lot of customization with it, integrating different components, kind of do-it-yourself type operations. The processing of data was not quite there either. Photogrammetry has been around for decades with manned aircraft, but the use of the data from drones into that workflow just really started taking shape, I'd say, in the last 5 to 8 years.
Yeah, so it's that long.
It's really come along now, the ease of use, and now the fact that it used to be service providers, early adopters getting onto this. Now it's pretty much common everywhere, especially in the mining sector, that you have an in-house mining program.
Well, we're going to talk about Freeport-McMoRan's use of it and like the pilots that you have. It's pretty interesting, actually. So before we jump into the more technical details and what's actually happening on the ground, or in the air, I should say. Wow. Dylan, can you give a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I am originally from New York State. And I moved out to Arizona back in 2005 to go to college, got my Bachelor of Science in Mining Engineering from the University of Arizona. And, right after that, I jumped right into mining. Started at the Safford mine in Arizona, worked also the Morenci mine. I've been to the Democratic Republic of Congo doing central mine planning work for Freeport. I've been with Freeport for a total of 15 years. My kind of foundational experience is in mine planning. The first 10 years of my career is focused on that, from day-to-day stuff all the way up to strategic planning, where you're planning out what to do with mine versus mine situations. So going through all that, I decided it's time to take the experience, the expertise that I've acquired in mining and see what I can do with technology to advance certain aspects of the mining environment that are struggling. And that really comes with, came down to, drones. So I jumped in the drone team in Freeport, which at the time was relatively small, and it's definitely grown now. But in 2019, I decided, okay, we've got a real opportunity here. About 5 years ago, I joined the team, and at the time there were only a few pilots in Freeport, but it's definitely grown. We've got over 100 pilots and 100 drones,
Wow.
and operating on in four countries, 3 different continents, and it's definitely grown to the point where we're getting into the niche use cases. Photogrammetry actually for us is kind of basic right now. It's funny to say that we've come a long way, but photogrammetry has hit the ground running in mining.
Let's talk about our heavy industry tour brought to you by Orica Digital Solutions, leading drill and blast into a new era with next-gen Shot Plus. With market-leading design tools and predictive modeling capabilities, next-gen Shot Plus equips drill and blast professionals to effectively improve blast designs and achieve optimal outcomes. Click below to learn more about next-gen Shot Plus. We are heading to events across North America and Australia and filming episodes on location. Email us at info@crownsman.com to be part of Crownsman's heavy industry tour. Make the most of your broadband network by adding mission-critical voice with Tasta's PTT. Trust Tasta Americas for flexible solutions that fit your needs and integrate seamlessly with data networks and devices. Take advantage of your existing broadband network such as LTE, 5G, and/or Wi-Fi to provide secure, reliable voice communications with their on-premise solution. Tasta Americas, your communication and safety partner. Visit tastaamericas.com or follow them on LinkedIn to learn more. As heavy machinery specialists for mining, SMS Equipment knows performance, like the performance they achieve together in a partnership dedicated to the success of their mining customers. At SMS Equipment, they're more than machines from trusted brands. They're the people beside you today and every day, bringing industry-leading technology and expertise to your mining operation. Because the right partnership makes everything possible. SMS Equipment, partners in your possibilities. Discover what's possible at smsequipment.com. The mining industry is navigating a significant transformation driven by electrification, critical mineral dependency, and net zero targets. But balancing daily operations and capital projects can be overwhelming. Burns & McDonnell is your trusted EPC partner, supporting projects from concept to completion. With more than 125 years of experience, they stand ready to help the mining industry meet the demands of the energy transition. Visit burnsmcd.com to learn more.
Wow. Yeah, there's so many directions to go. So I'm going to try, I guess I have to pick one. Although I wanted to quickly say, so you live in Arizona, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had a gentleman, one of our clients, he moved from Australia, which I think of as quite hot. And he was in shock at how hot it is in Arizona. I didn't realize it's that intense.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming and unending. We're still in the 100 degrees now in October 1st. So,
I mean, if it had been a guy, I mean, like Scott, I think you're in BC, right?
I'm in British Columbia. Yeah, they call it the Southern Interior region, which for Canadian standards, this is probably one of the hottest places in the country. But it doesn't compare to some of the sites down in Arizona.
Well, it just took me back when Australia, and there's known for some pretty harsh climates out there. He's like, yeah, it's crazy out there. Okay, so I want to talk about, I guess, Scott, just for anybody who doesn't know, let's do an intro to Wingtra for people to just understand what you're delivering to the market.
Sure. Wingtra's, we're a Swiss-based manufacturer of obviously aerial drone solution. It's called a VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing, which basically it takes off exactly as I stated, vertically, transitions into airplane mode, and comes back and lands vertically as well. So the benefits is you can take off and land in practically anywhere, tight situations. But unlike multi-rotors that we typically see out at sites, this transitions into that fixed wing mode. So you can cover large areas, which is perfect for mining applications where there's thousands of acres to be covered. So we really focus on best of data, best in class. It's a surveying system. It's meant for doing mapping. It's meant for doing high accuracy surveys. And I think beyond all that, it's easy to use. So we've enabled this to be scaled across operations, and quickly can be adopted by anyone, whether you have ever flown a drone before or you're completely new to it.
Was that always the goal? with Wingtra to make the ease of use, or did that sort of develop as technology advanced?
Good question. I think in general there's a number of goals. One of them definitely is the adoption and the ease of use. There's hundreds of platforms out there, and like I said, I've been around in the drone industry for quite a while, and there's definitely more advanced systems out there that are specific, have some specific advantages for certain applications. We're really focused narrowly on the mapping sector, the survey sector, and really to make this usable, it has to be the ease of use has to be there. And not only that, I think the confidence level has to be there. So it has to be a reliable system that you can train people on quickly. People are happy to use it. They're not scared to pick it up and go out and do their jobs or risk potentially of something happening to their jobs if something were to go wrong. We've tried to mitigate all of that, and again, it's a scalable system that we feel is the easiest system out there in the market.
I can't let there's a little comment you made that I can't let pass by. Is the narrow focus. Probably one of the biggest issues for companies pushing into a market is too broad a focus. You just see it all the time. Especially if you go to events and someone's, 5 minutes to explain all the things they do, and you're thinking that, okay. So what is that? Were you there when that decision because you could go with what you're doing, you could go in 1,000 different directions. What was it? Do you know the decision process behind that narrow focus? It's obviously working with the results you've had.
Yeah, I would like to say I was there when those decisions were made. We commercialized in 2016, 2017. We came into the U.S. I joined the company in 2018.
Okay.
It originally came from ETH University out of Zurich, Switzerland. The founders were all attending ETH. It was a project to begin with back in 2012, 2013. I think originally there was a thought of having a delivery type drone, medical deliveries. I think everyone, at least in the Wingtra world, are happy we didn't go in that direction. We decided they looked at the markets, they looked at the capabilities and what is missing out there, and really decided to say mapping, surveying is there's a need for this type of platform and data collection tool. But you're right, there's thousands of directions that you could go in. Drones are being used for all sorts of uses, applications. Again, we're really focused on the mapping and surveying industries.
Who is Savannah Equipment? Savannah Equipment Limited is a buyer and seller of new, used, and refurbished industrial equipment with a focus on mining and construction. They find, market, and sell surplus and used equipment. Does the equipment need work? They can refurbish. Is there something you can't find? They source those hard-to-find items. Selling equipment? They buy, consign, and broker equipment and asset packages. Need equipment moved? Savannah Equipment manages logistics for worldwide delivery. Surface and underground ore processing, concentrating, and refining plants and equipment, power generation and electrical, pump, material handling, alluvial placer, gold mining, recycling, and much more. If you need to buy, sell, find, refurbish, or move equipment, you need Savannah Equipment. Savannah Equipment. More equipment every day. Visit them at savannahequipment.com. Did you know cementitious binders can be responsible for up to 70% of the total GHG footprint of mine backfilling processes? Now you can replace up to 50% of the binder in your mine backfill operations with Graybond, Graymond's new low-carbon cementitious binder. This lime-based alternative binder maintains a 40 to 70% lower GHG footprint compared to typical cement and can adapt to varying mine conditions without compromising performance. Learn more about Graybond at graybond.com. When it comes to balancing the growing demand on your grid with the growing need for more responsible, sustainable energy production and generation, you need the right partner. A partner who delivers long-standing grid expertise from a team dedicated to your unique needs, and one who supports that team with innovations designed for the future needs of your grid, while being rooted in proven electrification excellence. ABB is that partner, offering solutions that meet technical requirements, regulatory compliance, and recognize the need for sustainability in your business operations, as well as in the lives of the surrounding communities. Solutions that expertly blend physical services and solutions with next-level digitization. Solutions that enable safer, smarter, more sustainable operations. ABB is the name to trust to help modernize your grid. Learn more at abb.com/CA.
Okay, so you're helping me perfect with a segue back to Dylan. Dylan, before we jump into what you're doing now with drones, I'd like to have an understanding of what Freeport. I was saying the full name, but you said Freeport, so I think I can just say that now. Freeport, what they were doing before this partnering up with Wingtra.
So the kind of the birth of Freeport's drone program started in around 2017, and that was right around the time when Part 107 regulations were rolled out. It made it a lot easier for people to get drones in the air legally.
Sorry, what is that? Sorry, Dylan, what is that regulation?
Oh, the Part 107 with the FAA. It's a set of regulations that were released around 2017 that allowed the public to test for and acquire drone pilot certifications.
Oh, okay.
Prior to that, you needed a 333 exemption, which is a much more lengthy and kind of convoluted process. And once it became more straightforward, more mainstream, that kind of opened the door for us to kind of train more drone pilots, see what's on the market as far as technology goes. And at the time, and kind of still now, but to less extent, DJI was the only choice, right? You either flew DJI or didn't fly at all, kind of, or you're flying something that you made in your garage.
Right.
So with DJI, we purchased a bunch of those, rolled them out to sites to just take pictures of things and take videos, which was a great benefit. We got that top-down view with a steady camera with 4K quality. You can slow down the video. That's something we didn't have before, and drones opened up that possibility to see the mine from a different angle. And then we rolled into photogrammetry, which Scott mentioned before, in 2019, which is taking lots of pictures in a very strategic way to get a topographic map after you process them. In 2019, we kind of partnered with Propeller, a third-party drone data processing service, to help process this huge amount of data that we now had in our hands from drones. And again, we're just using DJI at the time, and then around 2021, we decided as a company that we're not going to fly DJIs anymore. So it forced us to step outside and see what's outside this DJI box. So that's when we found Wingtra around 2022 as a definite possibility, and it forced us to think about the possibility of a faster drone that can take off in tight areas, that can cover larger areas. It could actually do more than a DJI, and at the time it was kind of mind-blowing. So that's where we're at now with Wingtra. It's a couple of years later, and we're still making innovations.
We're going to circle back, but I want to get an understanding, and because I think on the last one we talked with Propeller was on with Wingtra, we talked, but it's kind of towards the end of the interview, so I want to get to it quite quickly. Is what is the difference? And I know it's so stark from like flying a helicopter and doing all that sort of stuff, but I still think it's worth mentioning. What is the difference now with what you're doing from what you were doing 20 years ago, from what Freeport was doing? Was it just a helicopter every once a month going over? How could you even get that? Like Scott was saying, that some of the technology was out there before, but the frequency of using the technology was completely at a different level, or is at a different level now.
No, absolutely. 20 years ago, it unrecognizable, the data that we were acquiring. If mines wanted to spend the money, then they could hire a fixed-wing aircraft or a helicopter to acquire this photogrammetry data. And they would really only do that maybe on a yearly basis or even every other year.
Wow.
To get that high accurate map. But on a daily or a weekly basis, the mines update their topography because it's a very dynamic environment. You need that information for planning purposes. They would get that information straight from the surveyors on the ground, taking individual points, bringing it into AutoCAD, updating the maps from there. So you get a point every 10 or 20 meters, whereas with drones you're getting a point every 2 centimeters.
It's just such a stark contrast. Again, I want to jump into this. We'll circle back. But bottom line results, Dylan, is because we have a lot of companies with technology on the show. It's different when the actual mine operator is sitting in front of us telling it. So what are the actual end results from the operation standpoint, from efficiency standpoint? Do you have measurable metrics that you're able to use now?
Yeah. So with drones, you're getting that high accurate, high density points cloud and orthomosaic, which means that's basically a really accurate map of the area. And you're able to use it for so many purposes. You've got wall inspections where you need to go in and make sure that this wall was mined to design. And we need to know that right away because the mine is continuing to advance downwards. And if you don't go out and clean up that wall to design, then you won't have another chance. So that needs to be done quickly after the shovel goes and mines out material. And then looking at kind of a slightly larger picture, when you're looking at the whole wall, multiple benches, you've got to think about, okay, how is this wall holding up over time? Because as weather comes in, erosion, blasting might shake that wall up a little bit. The rocks start to fall down, but in mining, we build these things called catch benches in to catch material to keep it from falling down on production levels, down deep in the mine. But those catch benches fill up. So you need to fly the drone over that area and see how much those catch benches are filling up and to quantify the risk that those filling catch benches and those unstable walls potentially are having to mine production. And from there, you can create a mitigation plan or you can change your mine plans, but you'll have that view, that high accurate map to allow you to make decisions before things turn bad or affect production.
That must just be it must not even be comparable. Like I'm trying to sort of make this comparison, but it can't really be because that, it's like people that use drones to inspect a conveyor. And I think there's some regulations they're kind of trying to get changed because right now there's still people driving up and down the overland conveyors. But someone inspecting those walls, you can't really even compare the data you're getting now, especially on these large scale mines. One thing I was wondering is when you first started this, Dylan, because you were part of the Freeport's initial program, right? When you were on the ground level. So what were some of the concerns? Because that's obviously someone watching this interview. If you're wanting to get drones, you've probably already clicked on the Wingtra website. But if you're sort of going, okay, well, what about this? What were some of the concerns that maybe at the executive level had, operators had, people on your team, even within the team that were trying to get it? What were some of those things, the sort of the push and pull details that you had to go through?
Yeah, so some of the kind of obvious concerns that the public has about drones is that they're spying on you, that they're checking up on your work, that it's just Big Brother up there in the sky. That was something that we heard in the beginning. It's kind of faded away. Other concerns are that the drone's just going to fall out of the sky and land on somebody or land on a pickup truck and cause a crash or something like that. That's never happened. But those are the first concerns. The next concerns that the management kind of has is okay, we have this unique mining environment. We have limited areas that we could kind of take off from. Even though it's a large area, every little bit of space in the mine is used for something. How are we going to take off with a fixed wing drone in this area? And that's the great thing about Wingtra is you don't need a lot of space to take off and land. Whereas with other fixed wing drones, you need kind of a landing zone that's quite large. And then the weather, the environment, the wind conditions that the mine kind of creates, those little micro.
I wanted to ask about that actually.
Systems. Yeah, where you have these turbulent winds that come up and down the slopes, and these thermals from the changing temperatures that are experienced up and down the mine. These pits are up to 2,000 feet deep. So the temperature in the bottom could be 200 or 120 degrees, where you've got 80 degrees on the top. So it creates this very dynamic weather system. And when the drone's coming into land, it can be a little hairy. So that's a concern. I think it is still a concern with a lot of systems because drones are just very sensitive to wind in general and changing wind conditions.
Well, Scott, how is that dealt with?
Good question. Yeah, we work closely with Freeport and other customers of ours on this. I think the dynamic wind environment it's not unique just to mining, but it's something that is fairly common. I mean, you picture, as Dylan said, a 2,000-foot deep pit in a hot environment. You're going to get changing weather conditions, and I think for normal operations, when you're talking like construction, road construction, survey as a service, people are looking at weather conditions, obviously, when they're planning their missions. And it's a key part of it. When you're in a mining environment, you're in a pit, you can look at the weather forecast all you want. It's going to change as soon as you get drop down a few benches and as the morning progresses. So we face those challenges. It's something that we will continually do. Obviously, we're a technology company, so we're looking at ways we can innovate and always improve. This specific example, we actually spent time at some of their sites with them. We brought people over from our office in Switzerland. We worked with the pilots. We wanted to really see what it was like on their benches in their flying environments. And we came up with innovative ways. Just some of it can be changes in training, onboarding, looking at better ways. Maybe it's places we should be flying from that might be a little more have more advantages. Even changing some of our algorithms and how the drone takes off and lands was enough to actually mitigate a lot of those risks. So there's always going to be improvements, of course. I think one of the comments as well was the expectations. You and Dylan had mentioned that, and that's part of this critical part of having a successful drone program within a mining operation. It's setting those expectations with the management level and the various stakeholders within the organization. These are flying robots. There's just inherent risk in general. And there are some people that just don't really understand the true value of what these drones are bringing to the organization. And so as soon as there's an incident, without really understanding what that was, what does an incident mean? Is it the drone tipping over when it's landing? Is it falling out of the sky? Those expectations kind of need to be communicated across the entire organization. But really, what is the value of having a drone on the site? What are we doing with this data? What did we do before? How would we ever replace drone information, drone data at the site? This data is used more and more across all departments, all stakeholders, and it's driving a lot of business decisions. So again, mitigating some of those risks, there's ways that we've been able to do that successfully, but it's always going to be an ongoing challenge. And of course, we'd like to say there's never going to be ever an incident with a drone on a site. But we also have to set those expectations that these do happen. They are flying robots.
Yeah.
But there's ways we can reduce any chance of harm to people or property. So we do not have to worry about that. And we have a program in place that we're continuously flying, continuously collecting data to drive those business decisions.
Well, I'm glad you're actually talking about this because it's obviously it's a rugged environment. It's a flying robot. The technology is evolving. So I'm glad you're not on here pretending, oh, it's all, because again, we've had that with people come and talk about technology like it's this perfected thing. And it's so obvious that's not the way it works. So Dylan, now back to you. How do you manage that side of it? As one is technology. We're probably going to jump into AI here because I'm sure that's a component. I wanted to ask you both about that. But as the technology evolves, but also as little issues happen, how do you keep everybody on board within an operating mine, which is a rugged environment? It's high stakes, lots of pressure, lots of big equipment out there. People. A mistake in a mine there's not a lot of mercy. At a construction site, you might get a little thing through your finger. In a mine, there's really no mercy there. So how do you sort of manage those expectations, but also when something needs to be corrected or something goes wrong, keeping everybody on board?
Right. It's a delicate balance. When an incident happens, and I think we've had roughly 40 to 45 downed drones over the course of 60,000 flights.
Wow.
And so it's a very small chance that the drones will go down, but like Scott said, the drones will go down. But the risk and the reward, you have to look at. The reward is, okay, yes, the drone could potentially, come down and the drone is then destroyed. So you lost that investment. Or, someone might get their finger nicked by a propeller. But that's never happened, but it could. So, but the small incidents that could happen are outweighed by the safety that the drones provide as far as removing the human from the unsafe environment.
Yes.
Putting that buffer between you and that high wall, and so that you don't have someone walking at the base of it trying to get those points that the drone can get from 1,000 feet away. Or walking on a very toxic environment like a leach pad or a tailing structure where you have these chemicals coming out that are trying to process that copper, but you don't want to be walking on it. It'll eat your boots away. It's not good for your, just for you in general to be exposed to that on a regular basis. The drone can, obviously cover that whole area very quickly, and you're in and out, and you're never exposed to anything. So that's the expectation that we have to kind of put in their head, that the management and engineers, that if they have concerns about a drone causing a safety incident, we have to let them know that they are preventing so many more safety incidents.
Perspective is such an interesting thing. There was an Elon clip where they asked him about the gentleman that was caught driving down the highway asleep. Someone took a video of him, and he's sitting in his Tesla driving. And Elon said, yeah, people fall asleep driving all the time, but the car didn't crash. It's just a change in perspective, because so many people were piling on, like, oh, look at the danger of this. It's like, I know people, personal people in my family even, that have fallen asleep on the wheel and went off the road. It's a very real thing, but it is that perspective. And it is a thing that you have to make sure you're managing that, because all of a sudden you can get 3 or 4 people that are nervous about something, and that can spread until everybody's, they're saying 45, but they leave out the 60,000 flight part. And all of a sudden, and they leave out that the infrastructure is stronger because it's being inspected, that they're not having to walk on a leach pad, like all these types of things. It can completely shift. So now, Scott, and I really do want to get into some like advancement in technology. How do you approach it, though, as a company? These questions, these concerns, because I'm sure you still get them, even as it's more, sort of readily available in the market, the technology is being adapted. I'm sure you still get quite a few questions about things like this.
In terms of safety?
In terms of safety, the Big Brother thing that Dylan mentioned,
Sure.
All that kind of stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I think, it comes up from time to time. Again, the setting expectations is key to that. And you, across a mining organization, you run into various levels of experience with drone technology, from people that have been used to it, they've been around it for years, to others that have never been exposed to it. And maybe think of negative ideas around drone technology, and whether it's privacy or the potential risks that they that they incur. But I think for us, we're the manufacturer of the system. As I mentioned before, part of my role is working with Freeport and some of our other large accounts on what can we do to help improve your life, improve your business, your operations, and even key part of that is safety. As Dylan mentioned, I think if you look at mining and operations over the last 20, 30 years, and the risks that staff have had to put themselves in harm's way, to collect similar type of data, and where we're at now, it's gone leaps and bounds. But of course, everyone wants, okay, well, what do we do next? What is the next level? And I think for us, I mean, we track every incident when on our systems. So part of that is that we have statistics from hundreds of thousands of flights, where we're learning every time we're receiving this data of ways that we can improve the system to make it more reliable. We feel at this point it's the most reliable platform on the market, but there's always room for improvement. Part of what we're doing now with some of our large organizations are having predictive maintenance, for example.
Yeah.
So we can start seeing when there might be potential failures coming in the near term. And we can be proactive at that point and go ahead and replace, whether it's a motor mount or replace a system before we see any type of incidents.
So the technology within the drone itself for the maintenance. Yeah,
exactly. So that's really critical for us. The last thing you want is and we always hate the word crash. But again, there's ways we can reduce that and in fact eliminate that. And a lot of that also then goes back to the training, making sure your pilots are trained. You have new pilots coming in that they're properly onboarded. And everything's communicated properly across the entire organization. So you really start getting into more enterprise type programs that we work with Freeport at this point to, we understand that, okay, there was an incident over here. Let's figure out what possibly went wrong. How could we mitigate this for the future? What do we need to do? And we'll go in and we'll do our best to rectify that, communicate with the management, make sure everyone is comfortable with the solutions we've implemented, and then we move on to operations again. So it's an ongoing process.
Something I really wanted to get to in this interview is that as you mentioned earlier, you've been working together, your two companies, for quite a long time. And I was just curious of some of what has actually come out of that collaboration directly. Scott, maybe start with you.
Sure. Yeah. In 2023, we developed an innovator program. And Freeport were the first ones to be a part of this. And in general, it's a process we go through to really talk about challenges that Freeport are facing in their operations. And that really can run from anything from using the drone, flying the drone, training people to fly it, to I guess bottlenecks even with the data, and looking at ways to come up with innovative solutions and opportunities beyond just those initial challenges on what could we do together, what could we accomplish.
Dylan, how did Freeport approach that? Because you're the actual operator, so you're getting a chance to share, and then when they develop what you need, then you get to put it back into the system. I'm quite curious about that process from your end.
Well, it's great to be on the leading edge in that regard. Knowing that we had some say in what went into it is huge, because our program is advanced as far as we know in the mining industry, and so we have a lot of expertise to provide. So some of the advances that we're working with Wingtra on is collaborating on their cloud solution, making sure that all the mission plans that a pilot creates is shareable across the site, so that those pilots can check each other's work and make sure everything makes sense. Because the mining topography it's ever changing, as you can imagine. It's complex. You've got mountains that we've built over here, and we've got valleys that we've dug out over here. We've got power lines. We've got infrastructure just everywhere, and obviously that drone has to avoid those things. So when you're making a mission plan, you got to take all that into account, and having multiple eyes on a mission plan is very valuable. And yeah, you can share it, screen to screen with someone, but what if you're out in the field? You drop a mission plan just real quickly on the tablet. You want someone back in the office to check on it. Maybe your drone supervisor. Make sure just to give it a once over before you take off that afternoon. That's a big deal, and it saves potentially, a trip back to the office through that unsafe environment.
Scott, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think, again, part of this innovator program, it's been great to have Freeport involved in this. We've uncovered a number of challenges, and again, they vary from operational to training to even integrations. What can we do with the data? What other platforms do you need this data to go into for other people within the organization to have access to? Something, I guess, more granular that we've actually developed is, Dylan, you mentioned the 3D flight planning, the mission planning, but you really think of a mining environment and how it changes so much day to day. Being able to fly in that environment safely, and not only from the safety aspect, but to get reliable data that pilots can go out and repeatedly capture is a challenge. So with our new Wingtra cloud platform, we're now able to basically create a digital twin of that environment.
I see. Process
that data, have that data come back into your planning environment again. So now you have the latest exact digital twin again for your flight operations, which just builds more confidence with the pilots when they go out to the site to plan a mission. At the end of this, it just increases safety. It increases the amount of flights, which increases the amount of data that is used across the organization.
Can we jump into a little bit of the AI discussion? Is that that's already integrated in? I think Propeller already has that technology in there. Now, Scott, is that part of the Wingtra, like things like landing in different environments and stuff and things like that? Is that going to be part of what makes the improvements on those types of challenging environments?
Good question. Currently, I can't speak for engineers. I don't think we're using AI in that way just yet. I think there's definitely use cases out there that we will be looking at. I think for us, AI, I mean, it's such a broad term. What can be done with it. There's a lot that can be done with the images that are being collected at this point.
So on the data side.
On the data side, and that's really a lot of our focus is on the data. So image recognition, for example, is something that we are touching upon at this point. It's early stages, and I think again it goes back to the surveying world, making better decisions faster, collecting more data. So that really going back to what have I seen over the last 5-10 years changes with drone technology is the ability to collect even more data. And the sensors just start they're becoming increasingly better, higher resolution, 50, 60 megapixel type sensors. So a lot, I think now where we can start seeing AI is applying that technology into these high resolution images to be able to pull out more information and drive, business decisions even faster.
I saw a video yesterday, and I'm pretty sure it's real. The guy was doing an interview, and he took a picture of somebody. So it's a new picture. It's not on the internet. And then he uploaded it to a program, and then it brought out every image of that person that's on the internet. It was insane. It was insane.
Scary and amazing all at the same time.
It's exactly what it is. It is incredible, and it's absolutely terrifying all at the same time. But Dylan, now this is a question that I've had for a lot of technology companies, and I finally can ask this question to the operator. The integration of like a Propeller, a Wingtra, but I'm sure in your mind you've got all sorts of types of sensors on your crushers and your conveyor system and all the tanks and pumps, and it just goes on and on and on. How does it all sort of integrate together now from a Freeport perspective as you're putting all of this technology that the mines are becoming this big technology hub almost? How does it all work together? Where does AI come into it? How do you sort of integrate it all together? How do you sort of manage all these different technologies from sort of the different departments of the mine? I know that's a big question. We probably don't have time to really, truly unpack it. But just from sort of your perspective, how do you approach it?
Yeah, so looking at it from like a 30,000-foot view, like you said, there's bits and pieces in the mine that are controlled by different software. Some have AI, some machine learning. And they're all types of different sensors that are doing different things to help the mine run more efficiently. And it's not always all tied together. Parts of one process, all the sensors there might all be tied together and might be reporting to the people that need to make decisions. I think it's a work in progress. As technology evolves, we're going to continue to integrate more and more sensors, such as you talked about conveyor belts. There's so many different ways to monitor conveyor belts with different sensors. There's audible sensors where it listens for a sound, so you can place them at strategic points. And then once that sensor, detects a certain sound that indicates, imminent failure because there's too much friction or whatever, and it's creating a squeak, that can be reported up to somebody. But also on that conveyor, there could be thermal sensors that, it's detecting a rise in temperature that could also be indicating something bad about to happen. So that's just an example of conveyor belts. There's also vibration monitors on conveyor belts. That's another. It's like the eyes and the ears and the taste buds of all these different pieces of the process, keeping an eye on things, making sure it all is kosher. But in the mining environment, mining is inherently messy. So we're digging dirt and rocks, and rocks are hard, and rocks break things. So those sensors have to be pretty rugged. I guess tying it all together, drones, as far as drone technology collecting data, it hasn't been effectively integrated with all these other sensors for the most part. We're making strides. One example is the drone collecting pre and post blast.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah.
Right, and then pushing that through an AI and machine learning software that can indicate how that rock moved during the blast, and that's very important, because when you've got a mine that the geology is complex, the boundary between what's ore and what's waste, what's going to make money and what's going to lose money, is very fine. And if that blast pushed this material this way or this way, you kind of want to know that. So when the shovel goes through, it sends the material. It knows where the material is and can send it to the right place. So you don't want to lose money one way or the other processing material that's not ore, or sending ore to a waste dump. So that's one way that's kind of integrated. The shovel has sensors and software built into it that tells the shovel where it is and what it's digging.
Yeah, we've done those episodes. Yeah, amazing technology.
Right. So the drone is providing some of that data through the data that was processed with the drone.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, that's a little window. What Dylan's talking about. You could do 30 episodes just on the operations and integrating technology, and we wouldn't even really scratch the surface. It's actually an incredible topic. But how do you, let's go right down to ground zero, adopting the technology. What should people expect? And then I think I'll get Dylan to sort of jump into the initial stages of working with Wingtra, and then sort of how it is now. But Scott, what is your approach now? You know that these mines, now they might be different departments, but at the end of the day, these mines have all this technology coming out. I mean, we do literally hundreds of episodes about all the technology in the mines. So I can just imagine all the sort of waves that are coming at these mine operators. Everybody wants to be in their operation. What is the expectation that people should have when they're adopting the Wingtra technology into the system, when those drones are actually going to land on site? Day one, 3 weeks in, 6 months in, a year in?
Good question. You're right. I mean, things have evolved quite rapidly, and they will continue for forever. We'll see this evolution. I think for us, I mean, what we see, where we see successful drone adoption and I guess scaling across the organization, is you really have to have a strong internal champion, for one. That's critical. I think a lot of our customers that have invested into Wingtra at this point Typically have started off with in the multi-rotor type environment, smaller scale drone technology, and I think that gets your foot in the door. It gets your feet wet. Start understanding how to use drones. Make sure your pilots have their certifications, and being able to then start recognizing what applications you can use with drone data, and in where it could go. But you really have to have that internal champion. I think from there, what we're seeing with our customers is then expanding beyond just typical topographic survey applications. Most mine sites start off with doing volume calculations. That's kind of the norm, the standard, and I think really having people within the organization that can think beyond just the standard application. Where else can we can apply this technology? If you look at Freeport and what Dylan and his team have been able to do is really push the boundaries now of going beyond just short-term planning and getting into reclamation, high wall inspections. Typically done again with multi-rotors that would take a few days to achieve. We've been able to work with Freeport to figure out a way how can we fly closer into the pits with a fixed wing and cover the same amount of ground with the same type of resolution, the same accuracy, but now within hours. So you're drastically cutting down the amount of time that you're spending out in the field. So I think going back to it, I think there's always you have to start with. We had a mining forum just before Mine Expo, and Dylan was our keynote, and he had a great term as crawl, walk, run. You want to make sure you start small, get the foundation there, get people on board, understand the technology and where it can go, and start using it and see how you can start integrating that into some of your current workflows. From there, that's when the expansion really happens. And some of that can just be with sensor development. It doesn't mean an entirely new drone. I mean, the ability to have a new sensor put into a platform can open up the possibilities in applications. Again, going back to what we saw in the last 20, 30 years, we had manned aircraft, we had people with total stations, ground-based GPS, ground-based laser scanning. It's continuous evolution. And as you get into drones and now the large scale, more mapping of an entire site, instead of just focus on a short-term planning, it's really now opened it up to cover all aspects of the entire mine site, from pit to mine planning and reclamation.
Dylan, I actually just wanted to ask you, because there was a slide that I got sent, and there's some interesting stats on it. Now, I don't know if you're personally familiar with this slide or if this is a Wingtra slide, but there's a proven ROI sheet, and there's some interesting stuff. There's one is an estimated savings versus contractor, 1.2 million, and since 2022, 3.5 million. Now, we don't need to go into exact details of this, but I just was curious on the difference of having, because from my understanding, you have your own pilots that are actually part of your team. You're not using a contractor. Is that right?
That's right. Almost all of our mine sites, we have in-house trained pilots. There's a few that have some contractors that do work, but that's where we focus our return on investment kind of argument when it comes to drones. Is it's going to cost you, twice as much, maybe 3 times as much to hire a contractor to do the same work. So you buy a system, you train up a pilot, and in a pretty short amount of time, you're kicking out data that contractor would charge you a lot for. And over time, the value proves itself out. We've paid for this program time and time again. As far as total amount of money we've invested in it. What is the training process like, Scott? How do you onboard the pilots, or is that done? Or Dylan, is that done through something else? How do the pilots get online? So it's a mix. When you're talking about Wingtra has an advanced online training program. It's kind of a 4-hour program where the pilots can get online and go through modules that Wingtra has provided with the drone. And once they complete that, we take them in person, and we spend some time with them, go over the information they learned, actually give them a quiz, make sure that they retained what they learned. And then we go through, okay, what we've learned about Wingtra in our experience, using a kind of a standard format. And then we take them out into the field because once they've got their feet under them, knowing what the drone's all about, knowing the controls, they need to get their hands on those controls. They need to get that drone in the air and do some practice flights and understand how it actually works. Understand, the mitigations you need to take when things do go wrong. So we kind of we build in some tests in the air where we send the drone out to a certain distance and say, okay, go find it now, just to make sure that they can use their eyes to make sure that they're seeing the drone. It's very important to keep a line of sight on the system in case things go wrong. Another kind of test we give is, okay, hypothetically, there's an aircraft coming in at 1,000 feet, maybe even lower. What are you going to do with the Wingtra? What are you going to do on the controls? So, and then we tell them what they need to do, and then we build on that each flight during the day, and then we introduce these scenarios again, and then they can practice it, and we don't tell them by the end of the day what to do, and they can just take care of business.
Wow. Scott, anything to add to this onboarding and the training?
Yeah, on top of what Dylan had mentioned, we sell through a distribution network globally, but across North America, that's all of our partners are also trained and certified on the Wingtra platform, which is a great benefit because we typically have partners in local areas where you can have that in-person training as well. And not only that, you also have local support. So I think one other thing I'd like to mention is our innovator program. It's something that Wingtra and Freeport have been a part of for, I guess, a year now. And we're just really looking at challenges that Freeport are facing. And then we look at ways to come up with solutions on that, prioritize those. And we've had a number of advances through that program. One of them that we're starting to look at now is how can we help with their own internal training program now. They've been using Wingtra for a few years. They have their own standard operating procedures. So part of this innovator program is looking at, can we take these SOPs, integrate them into our online training, and have that as a customized portal for Freeport. So not only is it a way to update changes in procedures and in training, so it's more at an enterprise level and easy to scale, but it also is a great way just for when new pilots, new staff come on board, that they can ensure that they're being trained at the same standards that the rest of the organization is.
Gentlemen, it's an awesome discussion. And thank you to the Wingtra team for putting this together and bringing Freeport on. There's so many topics. I wish we had, we could actually, and hopefully we can do it another time, is actually look at some of these operations for Freeport and show what's actually being pulled and how it's done. But that would be a whole other show. I don't think we have the hour or two to do all that. But this is a pretty good overview of what's actually happening at an actual operating mine. So thank you both for doing this. I really truly hope we do it again because there's so much more to cover.
I thank you sincerely. It's been great to be invited and be a part of this. And thank you, Dylan, for joining us as well.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to show where we're at and the things that we're doing. So safe flying.
Yes, exactly. And thank you everybody for watching. We will have links to Wingtra and to Freeport in the description below. You can actually, both guests have LinkedIn, so their link will be in the description as well. If you're seeing this through LinkedIn, you'll actually see them tagged in the post itself. So however you want to do it, if you're having any trouble, just reach out to us directly and we will send you in the right direction. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode of Mining Now.